Network is a national Catholic social justice lobby. We have members across the country, but the bulk of our members are north or west. To be supportive of the Gang of 8 in the Senate, especially the Republican members, we wanted to do a Southern strategy to be supportive of them, of their perspective, and their views. So you can see on the map all of the places we went. It was a glorious experience. I rode all 3 weeks on the bus, and we needed a little bit of time to rest up and recuperate before we did the briefing, because it was exhausting, but it was fabulous. I'd like to introduce Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, who helped us, get the room, put this together, and who welcomed us in New Haven when we were there to start with the blessing of the whole bus trip. So, Congresswoman.
Thank you. You didn't come to hear me. You didn't come to hear these magnificent, courageous, and wonderful, wonderful women who are doing so much to get us back to the values that we all believe in, and get this nation back to the values that we are founded on. And it's important now, you know, especially when we're looking at the message from the Pope, Sister, a message of humility, of good works for all, vital importance as we help the poor, the sick, the marginalized in this nation. It's a vision. And it is a calling of our Catholic faith that our Catholic sisters have always embraced. And we are all in awe of the work that you do. You continue the work that you started. You made this push, and you're making it for immigration reform, and it's taken you around the country. Travel from Ellis Island to Angel Island, 15 states, 6,800 miles, and you talked with everyone who came in contact with you across this nation. It is wonderful to have you with us. We say thank you to you. Thank you for engaging in this conversation. Thank you for being a beacon for all of us. You restore our hope, and you restore our energy, and it is the basic principles that I speak as a Catholic, that our religion is found on, but it is the principle that this country and this institution is found on, and that is that we need to be able to dedicate our lives in the way that you have to social, to economic justice, and to helping people who are the most vulnerable in this nation.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
Makes me think of a family who saw us on the news in Philadelphia. They lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and they have a horrible deportation issue. And they got in their car and drove 18 hours to meet us in Charlotte. And because they thought the nuns could be the answer to their problem. And we were just weeping and holding them and crying, and then trying to connect them with lawyers and get them some real help. And I had to get back on the bus because we had to get to Greenville, South Carolina. Talking, and they're just weeping. They're so tired. And they have this little 8-year-old child with them. And in the end, what happened was I just went down to them and held them, and we just prayed together. And everybody in the church came and put hands on us and them, just trying to comfort them. But what I realized was it was only changing the law was going to be the answer for them. Because our law is broken and our families are broken. And this was what we experienced on the trip over and over. People frightened by a broken law, trying so hard to contribute and to be aspiring Americans, giving to the economy, but trapped in a broken system with no way to get in. In our 53 stops, we tried to do a variety of things. To learn about the diversity of issues that we're facing in immigration reform. This morning in the Post, I'm sure many of you saw that Congressman Goodlatte said that this was complicated and that the Senate approach was too big, so he's doing smaller pieces. Looking at smaller pieces is really important, but what we found on the road was these small pieces are integrated into a whole. And that the temptation is to think you can deal with any one piece individually, but the fact is they're all integrated. So what we want to share is some of that reality from our trip.
I was one of the ones that did the entire trip, so starting out at Ellis Island and continuing on to San Francisco. We started and ended at those places because these are the traditional entry places for immigrants historically, so we might call them our historical borders. We know that immigrants are already making a huge contribution to our society, and when comprehensive immigration reform is passed and the fear of deportation is taken away, they will be able to make even a greater contribution, just as our ancestors have over the years who have come from other. 1/4 of all new businesses is started by immigrants, and that people then are employed in those new businesses. And we also heard from a man who represented the Association of Hispanic Realtors, who said that they have done research and found that there are 3 million people poised to buy new homes, which would bring $500 billion into the economy once comprehensive immigration reform is passed. They certainly aren't going to make an investment when they fear deportation. We also met a group of entrepreneurs and faith leaders in the Silicon Valley, and they spoke about the number of jobs that they had available for people with the right skills in science, technology, economics, mathematics, and very often people are trained in this country but then find it difficult to stay here. They need to go back to their own countries. And while we were on the road, we found out that the Wall Street Journal on June 2nd published an article. And what we read there was that when comprehensive immigration reform is passed, that these 11 million people who are now here will begin paying into Social Security, and that would bail out our entitlement program. So that's certainly...
My name is Whittian. I currently reside in central New Jersey, the armpit of America. I actually grew up in Washington State. I came to the United States when I was 8 years old, and I knew the words, get this, yes and no, and the numbers 1 through 10. So it's been a minute since I've learned a few more words since then. I came to the United States, ironically, on the 4th of July, 1990, so I just celebrated my 23rd anniversary being an American, which is that I would be the face of someone who is an undocumented immigrant, as you can imagine. I speak a little bit of English. I have a graduate degree. I'm actually pursuing my doctorate in social work, which is a great gift. I've been working for 10 years and been paying my taxes, which is also a great blessing, and a contributing member of this society. My brother was deported about 5 years ago. He actually came to the United States when he was 2 years old and was deported at 21. You can imagine what that must be like for him to go back to our home country and not know the language or anything that's familiar. My father was deported when I was 12 years old, and it hasn't been a very gentle journey, if you will, but it has been filled with grace. My mom said when I told her I was coming today, she said, "Don't leave there. Tell Obama you can't leave until you have your green card." And I laughed. You know, my mom has an accent, and we have great conversation together. But that's part of the bittersweetness of this story, which is she doesn't really get it. It's not that easy. And the bitterness is that she does know how difficult it is. The hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars that my parents have paid to attorneys who ripped them off because of their extreme willingness to want to become citizens of this country. Not that they didn't desire it, they didn't want to speak English. That isn't true at all. Because if there was a way, I guarantee you, 11 million people would be standing at the door knocking and waiting for that opportunity because everyone wants to be a full citizen.
Often on the bus, we heard similar stories to Whittian, and one young woman stands out in my mind. When we were lobbying in Senator Flake's office, she herself was 19, and I knew a variety of fears, but the fear that she had was that she wasn't raising her 11-year-old citizen siblings well, because her parents had been deported, but she had gotten deferred action.
I think I'm going to start with talking about the experience with the Yaqui. That's particularly poignant for me because I have spent time on reservations, And I know how absolutely critical their ceremonials are, where most of a nation tries to come together. And until the fence went up, until the regulations became much more stringent, there was never a problem for the 30,000 members of the Yaqui Nation who live on the Mexican side of the border. And now, since the fence is up, and since the regulations are so much harder, they have a terrible time trying to cross the border to come back to the States to be able to celebrate with the rest of their nation, picking okra. And they were promised at the beginning of the day that they would get $12 a bushel. When they got to the end of the day, the owner said, no, we agreed to $8 a bushel. That kind of thing happens a lot. Or they'll be told that, no, you didn't work this many hours, you didn't come until X hour, you didn't work 12 hours, you only worked 6 hours. And so there's a lot of wage theft.
Their faith. I'm here to welcome the nuns back to Capitol Hill. I like the title, A Drive for Faith, Family, and Citizenship. Drive, good. Raise your hand, raise your voice, how about that? Who could say it better than you? When you came to San Francisco, it was just such a match, because in our city we say the beauty is in the mix, and that means our diversity. A minority majority city, probably nearly close to more people born out of the United States than in the United States. St. Francis being our patron saint. Francis took his name from St. Francis, and St. Francis in San Francisco. St. Francis said, preach the Bible, preach the gospel, sometimes use words. And that's what this bus trip was. It was preaching the gospel every mile along the way. And these principles that are here are important. They reflect our principles of the House Democratic Caucus. I know it's your own set of principles, but it's one we share, because they share also the respect that we have for the dignity and worth of every person in our country, regardless of their immigration status. But we do know that our country will be greater when their status is clearer, and that we have the full benefit of families being united, workers being respected, comprehensive immigration reform being passed, while we secure our borders, yes, but to do so in a way, as President Bush said, in a beneficent manner. So, nuns on the bus, Sister Marge Clark, Sister Bentoncourt, Sister, what can we do about Simone Campbell? I mean, she's a force of nature beyond. So thank you, nuns on the bus.
Sanchez, California.
Juan Vargas,
California. From Massachusetts. Cecile Roybal Adler. California is well represented. I'm grateful. Marcy Captor from Ohio. I'm so grateful. So grateful.
And Anna Eshu was here.
And your staffs can take you the stories of the Native American issue that is huge, that no one is thinking of. But on the bus in North Carolina at our business roundtable, a guy from the North Carolina Chamber of Commerce said, you know, one of the problems is, and we go, well, what? He says that everybody all over the world talks about the American dream, and you never hear about the Russian dream, or the French dream, or the British dream, or the Argentinian dream. We promote that this is the place where dreams are met. And because we promote that this is the place where dreams are met, we have a responsibility to have a system that can help fulfill those dreams. And for this guy from the Chamber of Commerce to talk about needing comprehensive immigration reform in order to make good on what our advertising had been saying, to me was a great, powerful message. It's about the people, it's about the dream, and it's about making it happen. So we have your backs. Let's make this happen and we'll work together.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.